on this, what we're going to do is fill out this chart by using our unit circle. So our cosine value on our unit circle is the x value. So on your unit circle, negative 2 pi. Again, we reminded you that on your unit circle, negative 2 pi would be all the way around in the negative direction. So right back to your starting point. And your x value is 1. Okay? So for negative 2 pi, my x value is 1. Do you guys remember last time when we filled out this chart, we started filling out both charts at the same time to save ourselves some time? So we're going to do that same thing as we go along here, fill out both charts at the same time just to save time. So again, we decided last time that that negative 7 pi fourths is kind of hard to decide where it is at when you're going negative. So we decided that if we took negative 7 pi fourths and we added a revolution to it, the 2 pi to it, then we would get its reference angle or its coterminal angle that we could look at on our unit circle chart. So when you add 2 pi to negative 7 pi fourths, what do you get? Anybody know? So take negative 7 pi fourths and add a full revolution to it, which would be 2 pi. It is pi over 4. So what value are we going to look at on our unit circle? We're going to look at pi over 4. So do you remember, again, last time we changed these to decimal point numbers? Does anybody remember what the square root of 2 over 2 is? 0.707. So it's 0.707 for that value. Sorry. All right. Are you okay if down here on pi fourths we put 0.707 because we just used that value, right, to find that? So somebody already said they think this next one's going to be 0. Why do you think that's going to be 0?
Because of what we did yesterday. Basically looking at the same chart and apparently the same pattern repeating itself.
Oh yeah, so the same pattern repeating itself. So let's try it out and see. So take the negative 3 pi halves and add 2 pi to it. So you're at pi halves. You go find pi halves on your chart and your x value is 0.
Oh my gosh.
What? Were you right?
I was right.
You were right. So does anybody think they know what the next number is going to be?
I want to say negative 1 or negative 7 or 0.707.
Oh, so we don't remember.
Well, I'm looking at the chart right now.
Okay, so we can use 3 pi fourths, right? Because we've decided that these are going to match up. So 3 pi fourths, when you go look at your unit circle,
0.707.
0.707. Is it negative though or positive?
Negative.
It is negative.
So it's literally the same exact thing as this right?
Oh, like literally? Or like...
Like absolutely.
or like... So, does anybody have yesterday's note-taking guide out to look at that? Because I got mine. Let me show you mine. Okay? So, here's today's. Here's yesterday's. So, at negative 2 pi, we were at 0. And at negative 2 pi, we're at 1. So, then we were at 0.707 and 0.707. Then we're at 1, but we're at 0. So is it the exact same?
No, but it's just moving forward a little bit.
Okay, what do you mean by moving forward a little bit?
That's a good question. Shifted. Yeah.
What, shifted?
Right.
Right?
Left, down, up, I don't know.
I love that you're thinking. Okay, do you think that we could use our other chart and finish filling out this? I mean, we got this, right? We're 1, 0.707, 0, negative 0.707. Anybody know what's coming next from their other note-taking guide?
0.
Actually, it's negative 1, right? And then...
Oh, yeah, no. The negative 0.0.
Okay, now you're up, you're coming down, you hit 0, you're going down, you hit negative 1. So what are we coming to do now? We got to come back up, right? So if we're coming back up from negative 1, what's my next value going to be? Negative 0.707, right? Because I'm coming back up. So negative 0.707, and then what value? 0. And then what value?
1.
Wait, not 1 yet,
What?
right? Because we're coming back up. So 0.707, and then 1. So same pattern here. You're at 0.707, you go down to 0. You go down to negative 0.707. What's your next value going to be? Negative 1. You're making it all the way down to negative 1. Then what are we going to start doing? Coming back up. So negative 0.707. Then what? 0. Then 0.707. 1. Then we're coming back down to 0.707 again. Okay, we can take these values now. That took a long time to fill out that chart, but I'm glad you saw the pattern. We're going to take those values and we're going to graph them over here. So I'm going to come over to my graph and just go with my ordered pairs. That first ordered pair was negative 2 pi 1. So over at negative 2 pi, I'm up at 1. At negative 7 pi fourths, I'm at 0.707. At negative 3 pi halves, I'm at 0. At the next spot, I'm at negative 0.707, negative 1, negative 0.707, 0, 0.707, 1, 0.707. Are you seeing a pattern? 0, negative 0.707, 1, negative 0.707, 0. Are you seeing how you can just fake it after a little bit? Like you know where it's going, right? So my graph looks like this for my cosine value. Now, up, down, like this. Okay, so tell me this. How is that different than the sine graph?
I mean, it's not.
Okay, what do you mean it's not?
That looks exactly the same to me.
Oh, like, so if I looked at it from here to here, it looks like the sine graph. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
That's been phase shifted, right? That's been moved to the left. So when we're looking at the cosine function, though, we always are going to start looking at it between 0 and 2 pi. So between 0 and 2 pi, wait, I just drew my line at the wrong spot, sorry. Between 0 and 2 pi, this part of my graph. It's more like a,
U-shape.
yeah. So when we're doing our cosine graph today, we're going to be graphing these U-shaped things, but really, it's the sine graph that's been moved, right? So keep that in mind while you're doing it. So what's the period of this shape?
2 pi.
2 pi still. What's the domain?
Negative is the positive.
Exactly.
You know?
You got it. What's your range still? Your still lowest point is negative 1 and your highest point is still 1. The y-intercept is up at 1. 1. The y-intercept is up at 1. Where do the x-intercepts occur? They occur at pi halves and 3 pi halves. Right? So the sine's x-intercepts are here, here, and halfway in between. So take a look at that. If we were to do the sines, do you see how they're kind of like the opposite of where our other ones were? They're the only other two spots that we didn't use before for our cosine's x-intercepts. So how does the cosine function compare to the sine function? What did you guys say it was? Did you say it was a phase shift? It's a phase shift of the sine function. So it's really still all the same values. Nothing's really changing. We just moved it. So it looks different when we're looking at it in just our little period of 0 to 2 pi. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the exact same rules that we've used on the sine graph, and we're going to graph them like we have before. So here's the 5 points that we're going to do. We're still going to use the same 5 points that we would normally use. Did you see here the 0, you're up at 1. At pi halves, you're at 0. At pi, you're down at 1. 0, and then 1 again. So if you're going to sketch your graph through here, you're going to make it look like a U with almost the tops of the mountains, right? Because those are going to flatten out right there. This should really be my maximum point. I should have turned really right here and come back down. So I didn't do a very good job drawing that. But point being is those 5 points are the points we're going to be using for the cosine function today. But notice that when you're at the y-axis, you're up at 1 to start. When you're at 2 pi, where are you at? You're up at 1. And in the middle, where are you at? Down at 1. Okay, right? So start and finish at 1, and in the middle, you're down at 1. You following me on our 3 big points we're going to use? Okay, so just like the sine, the cosine follows the same rules. The A is our amplitude. It changes the height of the graph from the midline to the top, from the midline to the bottom. The B changes our period, so still 2 pi divided by B. The H is a phase shift left or right, and the K is up or down. So none of this is changing. We're just graphing 5 different points than what we were graphing before. Okay? So on this example right here, example 1, we're changing only the amplitude of the cosine graph. So anybody remember where I said to start your cosine graph at? You start it up at 1. You're ending it up at 1, right? That's our 2 big points on our period from 0 to 2 pi. Anybody remember where I said at the bottom where you would be?
-1.
Okay, normally -1, right? But
Oh, we're going down 2, so it's -2.
it would be, so I want you to think about that right now. So Brandon says normally it would be 1, so I'm going to go down 2 from there, which would be right here. But the negative means flip it completely the other direction, right? So instead of down at 3, where am I really going to be up at? Up at 3, right? So I'm really going to be up here instead. And actually, should we not be up